All right, let's go forward. And if you could just be on mute if you're not speaking, that'd be great. So just to set the stage here, our mission is to provide students with opportunities to develop creative problem solving and problem identification techniques through inventing, innovating, and entrepreneurial activities, leading to greater consideration of STEM careers in high school and college. So that's our sort of framework in everything we do. And I'm just flipping over to our agenda. We've got actually several folks have had their invention conventions, Roxanne in Georgia, Annalise in Chicago, and Sue in Connecticut's they've had their regionals, and this is their first year of doing regionals, so we'll get a little bit of information there. We'll hear from the steering committees. We'll talk about NICE 2017 logistics and an IP legal update and some of the affiliate outreach that's going on. And then we'll have sort of open topics for anything else. As we get into the various topics, and let's start with the updates that are going to come from Georgia and Chicago and Connecticut. If we can keep those to like 5 minutes, that's going to be great, because I know and in fact I put in a bunch of images from Chicago, and we could probably go for an hour on each and hear great stories. But if we could kind of go maybe 5 or 6 minutes, that way, we don't get to the end and not having completed the rest of the agenda. So it'd be good to have some highlights, though, for sure. So let's hop in, and Roxanne, if you wouldn't mind, if you're on, give us an update on Georgia and how the Invention Convention there went.
Yeah, sure. So it was awesome. We had 82 teams from about 12 different counties. Our youngest team was 2nd grade, and the oldest is, of course, 12th grade. We had about 84 judges, most of whom were from industry, which I was really excited about. We were in a new space, so you can see it, and from the picture, it looks pretty good. Georgia Tech Communication did some nice stuff for us this year. So they did a Facebook Live broadcast that was viewed about 10,000 times. And I put on this slide some of the comments from that live broadcast, which I thought was pretty cool. This is a great investment in our youth and future engineers. So I thought that was a lot of fun. On the next slide, I put in some photos from our Georgia Tech Inventure Prize. So if you guys aren't familiar, Georgia Tech does an undergraduate invention competition, which is actually televised live on Georgia Public Broadcasting. And then we actually even have an ACC, an all-ACC conference version of that show as well. This is the Georgia Tech one, and our kids who come to compete at Georgia Tech are invited to stay for the live broadcast. And we featured this year those 2 5th graders who won the National Invention Convention last year in 5th grade. They came in first place. So they got to give out the envelopes and trophies on stage and live on TV, which I thought was pretty cool. We also had a really great teacher segment, which I have a clip of from that broadcast, which I'll share with the group after this meeting.
That's cool. Congratulations, Roxanne. Any questions for Roxanne at all?
Hey, Roxanne, Danny. I'm intrigued by the fact that you had Facebook Live that was viewed 10,000 times, and yet you had such a much smaller number of students that were taking part. To what do you attribute that?
Georgia Tech has a large following on Facebook. So this is on the Georgia Tech Facebook page, not my Facebook page for Inventor Challenge. So I think that was part of it. I think it got shared a fair bit, and I think people didn't necessarily watch the whole 30 minutes, but, glanced at it. So I thought that was neat.
Yes,
guys, it sounds like some people aren't on mute and a lot of background noise coming through.
Yep, I was just going to mention that. So so if you are not on mute and not talking, if you could go on mute, that would be great.
So an interesting takeaway from that, Bill, is, which of your sponsors or partners do you have that have Facebook pages that you might borrow during your Facebook Live stuff and be able to go and get a lot more viewers in the process? I know, for instance, here in Connecticut, Susan, we've got like Stanley Black & Decker, United Technologies, other people like that. If when we go to to do stuff with Facebook Live, we asked them to also put it on their pages at the same time. That could really explode our audience. So it's interesting how Georgia Tech really drove up the views there.
Well, and really what you want are the logo impressions, right? So that's really key, and it will help your analytics in future as you go for next year's sponsors. So let's move on to Chicago and Annalise. Annalise, you want to walk us through Chicago?
Sure. So our Invention convention was on Saturday. We had 285 inventors, K through 8, from 22 public schools around Chicago. We used judging circles for the first time, and so I tried to model them based on what I saw last year at NICE. We did do for K through 3, we only did 4 inventions per judging circle, and then 4 through 8, we did 8 inventions per judging circle. That way the little kids weren't sitting around for too long. And I think it worked really well. I also think the judges really enjoyed it, and everyone noted that it was a lot more quiet than it is normally when judges are running around. So, yeah, that's all I kind of have to say on this slide, if you want to go to the next one.
Sure.
And then Sherilyn was also there, which was awesome. We also formally announced our transition over to a new organization, Chicago Innovation Awards, so that it has a home after I leave.
Very cool. So I also put in these images. I think Sherilyn had forwarded these. Anything you want to speak to? And there are about, I think, 4 pages of these.
Yeah, you can kind of flip through them. So because we don't have enough, judges to do judging circles all at once, we have kind of a separate holding room where we do different activities. So we had, like, you'll see the James Dyson Foundation there was doing the marble run, and we have a couple other organizations that kind of help us facilitate some fun activities for the students when they're not being judged.
There's some more here.
Yeah, and you can see the judging circles tended to work out pretty well. Everyone, all the judges were very engaged, and the students were all excited too.
Excellent. I think somebody ran in a road race the next day.
I couldn't resist sending this one over.
Morning.
I took this one of Annalise and I shared with Danny. I said, she's truly an alien. This is why Chicago's rocked so much. She got up the next morning, that's her sister on the left, and ran an 8K. And I don't know if anyone else did that. I never did, but God bless her, because that was 8 o'clock in the morning the next morning.
Perfect. That's the way to go. All right. Cool. So thank you. Any questions for Annalise at all, or Sherilyn, who was there observing?
I just did want to share, this was my first experience since I was not at Nationals last year. This was my first experience seeing judging circles, how they work and how they would, function pro-con. And, in truth, I didn't know, because we've not done this. In the 18 years in Ohio, we changed judging significantly, about 5 times. Different changes were made, and I'm sure Veronica's made some changes since, and I didn't know how it would work. And the thing that struck me was, as Annalise mentioned, it was very quiet. It was very quiet, and it was very respectful, and it reminded me a lot of another program that I ran at Ohio State, which was more entrepreneurial in nature, where the child stood up and pitched a room. And it basically, I think it also prepares these young kids to get ready to pitch to a group in a respectful way. The judges were calmer. It was less frenetic, and I truly think, having just seen the first one ever, I think everyone came away, not just the judges. The judges were calmer, the kids were calmer, but the parents were kind of shocked that their children were sitting quietly and were being respectful. And I think you're building life skills that might be soft skills, but I think it's an amazing way to judge. I was very impressed. Cool.
Great observation. Well, good. Well, let's move on to Sue in Connecticut. And again, I just remind everybody, if you're not speaking, to have your phone on mute. That'll, again, keep our sound quality good. So, Sue, you want to take us through the regional
Sure.
events that you
so, So just a little minor correction in our introduction when you said we had our regionals. We are halfway through our regionals. We have 4 regionals.